Disclaimer: the following program is designed to offend, provoke, and challenge your religious sensibilities. It contains content that will likely offend anyone who holds religion sacred. This is for those with thick skin or a taste for the harsh truth. If you're easily offended or cherish your religious views, please turn off now. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. You have been warned. Hey everyone, I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't this guy disappear for a week? Did Jesus finally smite him? Close. Real close. Turns out my gallbladder decided to do what the Holy Spirit never could, actually affect my body in a measurable way, so I spent the week in a hospital bed, high on painkillers, surrounded by machines that did more healing than any faith-based crap ever has. To all the believers who were out there praying for my sudden and mysterious demise, sorry to disappoint. I'm still here, slightly more stitched together, slightly more pissed off, and very ready to keep ruining your favorite verses. You prayed for judgment, I got morphine and a robot surgeon. You wanted me silenced, I came back with more gall, literally, because they couldn't take my sarcasm out with the organ. So grab a drink, smash all the fancy buttons and stuff. So anyway, while Jesus was busy ghosting prayer requests, I was recovering and reloading. Today we're back in Matthew 16, and it's not just my incisions that are getting sliced open. Let's get into it. Jesus takes his disciples to Caesarea Philippi, which, if you didn't know, is a pagan hotspot up north, sitting below Mount Hermon, right next to a shrine for Pan, the half-goat fertility god. This place was soaked in animal blood, wild rituals, and superstition. The locals thought the cave at the base of the cliff was a literal gate to the underworld. So, naturally, that's where Jesus decides to stage a showdown. And it wasn't just Pan in the mix here. This region hosted various fertility and mystery cults celebrating dying and rising deities. While Pan worship is archaeologically attested at Banias, direct evidence for a distinct Dionysus cult here is limited. Jesus drops his resurrection theme right here in a place that already had theatrical rituals around death and rebirth. So this isn't just a coincidence. It certainly seems as though it was chosen purposefully. Jesus opens with this. He says, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" Again, not just a harmless nickname. Son of Man comes from Daniel 7, and that same title appears in Dead Sea Scroll circles as an apocalyptic judge figure who would crush the wicked. If you were in Qumran, that phrase was end times dynamite. So when Jesus drops it in front of a bunch of ex-pagan fishermen, it's not just rhetorical flair, it's an apocalyptic siren. The crowd misses it entirely. But the readers, they're supposed to hear thunder. So why is Jesus even asking this? If this is God in the flesh, if this is the one who knows people's hearts, thoughts, and secrets, why is he standing here polling his own disciples about public opinion? He's omniscient. Or, I guess, until it's time for a dramatic setup. Then suddenly he's playing dumb. If he already knows their thoughts, the question is pointless. If he doesn't, then he's not God. Either way, the logic collapses. Anyway, the disciples give him the crowd's best guesses. They say, some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, Jeremiah, or maybe just one of the prophets. So pretty much they're saying, you're probably just another dead guy, nothing divine, nothing unique. Then Jesus turns it on them and asked, but who do you say I am? And Peter, who just 5 seconds ago flunked the yeast metaphor, suddenly lands a perfect theological bullseye. He says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And notice, Jesus doesn't say it himself. He waits for Peter to speak, then nods like, ding, ding, correct, God told you that. It's funny because he's definitely dodging actually saying he's the Son of God, because think about it, if Jesus blurts it out, he's committing blasphemy, or at the very least political suicide under Rome. But if Peter says it and Jesus simply confirms, it becomes a revelation rather than a self-promotion. Matthew uses this twice in his gospel, hint it, stage it, then pretend it was obvious. It's not humility, this is more like plausible deniability. It's not a casual compliment. He's given the full divine job title, Messiah, Son of God. And in Roman territory, calling someone Son of God carried imperial connotations. Emperors used that title to assert divine right. So saying it of Jesus wasn't just religious. It was a direct challenge to Caesar's theology. Jesus responds to Peter, saying, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah. Flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you, but my Father did. So that's not a, you're right, that's a, you didn't make this up. The central identity of Christian doctrine is affirmed secondhand. Narrative cowardice, you decide. Anyway, Jesus lights up like Peter cracked a heavenly code. He says, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. Flesh and blood didn't tell you that. My Father did. That Bar-Jonah line isn't filler. Son of Jonah echoes the earlier sign of Jonah, jab, and sets up Peter's moment. Your dad's name was a punchline about clueless Pharisees, yet you, his son, nailed it. Then Jesus drops the line that shaped 2,000 years of church power struggles. You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my assembly. In Greek, Petros, small stone, versus Petra, bedrock. In Aramaic, it's the same, Kepha, so Matthew weaponizes the Greek ambiguity. To Catholics, Peter the man equals the foundation, first bishop of Rome. To Protestants, it's Peter's confession equals foundation, not the man. And that word assembly is ecclesia, the civic town hall under Caesar's thumb. Jesus hijacks imperial language and plants his flag as a rival kingdom. Then he adds, the gates of Hades won't prevail against it. Not metaphorical fire siege speak. He dares that cave's gate of Hades to stop him. Next, we get him saying, I give you the keys of the kingdom. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. So notice that binding and loosing were rabbinic courtroom terms for forbidding or permitting. This is basically handing Peter cosmic veto power. Minor word order variants appear in manuscripts, but no major clause omission. Scribes argued over phrase order, not content. So Peter goes from clueless about bread to judge, maker before God, standing in a pagan death cave. Direct challenge? You bet. And after all this, Jesus says, and don't tell anyone I'm the Christ. Matthew repeats this messianic secret crap multiple times. It's not genuine secrecy. And note the singular you in verse 19. This is a one-man office. In Matthew 18, verse 18, the plural appears for all 12, but here it's Peter alone. Last scene felt like Peter's promotion to foundation of the church. This is where it all comes crashing down a few verses later. Matthew opens with, from that time, which, by the way, is the exact phrase he used in verse 18 to launch Peter's rise. Now it signals Jesus' turn towards suffering and death. One moment, Peter's exalted. The next, he's under fire for trying to stop the mission. Jesus lays out the plan, go to Jerusalem, face every ruling body, be executed, and rise on the third day. That's the turning point for the whole gospel. Acting like a normal human, says, no, you don't have to do this. He pulls Jesus aside. Maybe he thinks he can talk him out of it. Also interesting to note here is that Matthew plays this as a private aside, but Mark 8 verses 32 and 33 makes it public. There, Jesus turns and rebukes Peter in front of everyone, using apisomusu, or get behind me, for maximum public humiliation. His response isn't one of empathy. He doesn't tell Peter, hey, I understand. No, it's straight to get behind me, Satan. The word here is satana, or the proper name Satan, not the general term for devil. Jesus is equating Peter's compassion with active sabotage, echoing Satan's own temptation in Matthew 4 to avoid suffering. He tells Peter, thou art a stumbling block to me. Scandalon isn't just a trip hazard, the same loaded trap term used in Matthew 13 verse 41 and 18 verse 7 for moral snares. Used by saying you do not mind the things of God, but the things of men. In Romans 8 verse 5, Paul contrasts fleshly and spiritual mindsets. Here, Jesus pronounces Peter's human concern worldly, disqualifying it. Peter rockets from rock to adversary in under a minute, which is hilarious. So much for spiritual growth, I guess. Anyway, Luke 9 verses 21 and 22 streamlines the entire scene. He strictly charged them in the Greek, it's enetealo, and jumps straight to the suffering prediction, omitting Peter's protest and the Satan rebuke. Luke smooths the crash, Matthew lets it rattle. Calling Peter Satan, Jesus turns to the rest and delivers what might be the most deranged recruitment speech in history. If you still want to follow me, go ahead and grab your execution beam. Let's not get poetic here. It's unnecessary. The cross wasn't symbolic. In Roman Judea, a staros was the literal execution beam. No first century listener heard carry your burdens. They heard carry your death warrant. So no, this wasn't a one-shot line. Luke 9 verse 23 adds the word daily, turning this into a perpetual suicidal routine. So pretty much saying volunteer for crucifixion every single day. That's not martyrdom imagery. That's a daily death sentence. It's completely silly. Disown yourself, deny yourself, and other translations basically just means become a worm, not a man. The phrase disown himself echoes Psalm 22, verse 6, where it says, I am a worm and no man. In Hebrew, nefesh, soul, and Greek, suke, both mean the entire person, the breath, guts, being. So losing your suke/nefesh means absolute annihilation. 5 here says, for whoever may will to save his life shall lose it, and whoever may lose his life for my sake shall find it. I mean, this is straight where cults get their logic. Survive? You're damned. Die on cue? You get a prize. John 12 verse 25 doubles down on this and says, he who loves his life will lose it, which just proves hate your own life was the discipleship starter pack for these freaks. 6. For what is a man profited if he may gain the whole world, but of his life suffer loss? This riffs on Ecclesiastes' chasing wind and Psalm 49 verse 7's no ransom for a soul. You could own every empire, but lose your suke/nefesh, and you're nothing. Verse 27 looks like a works-based reward system, which certainly isn't Pauline grace. It echoes Jewish wisdom. There's no wiggle room here. Basically, bleed for a golden ticket. Verse 28 here, certain of those standing here shall not taste of death till they may see the Son of Man coming in his reign. So this promise ignited early failed parousia predictions. Church fathers pinned it to the Transfiguration 6 days later, see Matthew 17, verses 1 through 9 as fulfillment. Pretty much an ad hoc cover-up for a prophecy that never actually materialized, a very shabby fulfillment, huh? So 6 days later, Peter, James, and John see Jesus glow with Moses and Elijah. No angels, no throne, no judgment scene, no rewards. Terrified, not triumphant, see Mark 9 verse 6. Basically a divine light bulb, just 6 days too late. Masquerading as the second coming, again, pretty silly, didn't quite pan out for those apocalyptic hopefuls. Through Matthew 16 and seen exactly how Jesus doesn't tiptoe around his demands. Every line, take up your cross, lose your sukkah, come bitter or die, lands as literal, unambiguous instructions. Obey or face gruesome consequences. He isn't offering a feel-good self-help platitude. He's demanding hands-on participation in the execution spectacle. Some keyboard warrior jumps into the comments to whine about, it's just metaphor. Let's obliterate the 3 most predictable excuses. Right here, right now, carry your cross is just self-denial. No, it's not. No, dummy. Stauros in first century Palestine was the actual execution beam. If Jesus meant just give up hobbies and mellow out, nobody would have lined up to be crucified. Ignatius, Polycarp, and a legion of early Christians heard take up your cross as a literal death warrant, because that's exactly what it was. God wouldn't tell you to kill yourself. Oh, really? Ezekiel never told anyone starve yourself, but Jesus does. Whoever saves his life loses it. Whoever loses his life for my sake gains it. Early believers didn't shrug and say that must be figurative. They straight up marched into Roman arenas. Try to live, you're damned. Die on cue, you get a prize. No sugarcoating allowed here, believer. Then we have the whole, he came back before they died, which, nice try. Transfiguration wasn't a sky-wide second coming with legions of angels and godly fireworks. Instead, it was a glorified light show on a hillside 6 days later. No clouds, no throne, no reward for works. Everyone still died long before Jesus supposedly returned in glory. If coming in glory meant a glow-stick party, explain why Peter, James, and John were terrified, not celebrating. There it is. No more wiggle room. Jesus isn't doling out sweet spiritual metaphors. He's demanding your corpse. And when the big finale never shows up because nobody saw him descend in judgment, you still end up dead anyway, either by your own hands or Rome's. That's blackmail, pure and simple. If you thought Matthew 16 was inspirational, you must have skipped the part where he hands you a cross and says, follow or perish. Smash that like button like it betrayed you. Comment which verse you want me to eviscerate next. Subscribe so you don't miss my inevitable appendix removal live stream. And by all means, pray for my next medical crisis, because nothing says faith like cheering at my tonsillectomy. You glorious, dirty heathens. See you in the next one.